Greetings, Earthlings, and humans, and all sentient life forms, including clones and doppelgangers or what have you, and as well as animals who are my biggest fans. Keep sending me those videos of your cats, dogs, pigs, and horses, loving, and parakeets and birds, loving on the sound of my voice on this here podcast, because animals are smarter than humans. They're tuned into a higher frequency, and they know that they are hearing the voice of sanity finally, piercing this realm of unified bullshit. Salute! Welcome to the Roseanne Barr podcast.
Oh, you see, my patience is growing thin.
Well, we've got a banger of a show today. You know, I said I only like to talk to creative geniuses, and I've got one today, and he's a good one. Matt Walsh. Hi, Matt.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
As I told you, I asked if you were Irish.
Yeah, you said I look like a leprechaun is what you
You
said.
look like a little leprechaun today in your plaid shirt with your work boots. It's adorable.
I will, it's probably the first time I've been called adorable, but I'll take it. I don't, that's a new one for me. I'll take it though.
I hope it's not offensive, but I love the Irish. My kids, well, some of my kids are half Irish, you know.
Well, no, it's not offensive because the Irish are one of those groups that you're allowed to, we're not a very sensitive bunch. So, you know, you can have the Fighting Irish, Lucky Charms, all that. We don't get
The
too
black
upset about
Irish.
it. Right. It's fine. It's all good.
The Irish are a resilient sort with a hopeful view of the world, I think, for the most part. I've always enjoyed the Irish.
Yeah. I don't know about the hopeful view, at least. I can't, you know, I don't know if that applies to me quite as much, but.
Do you have a hopeful view?
I mean, ultimately, as a Christian, you have a hopeful view because we've read the last page of the book, so we know how it all ends. But in the interim, you know, if you were to ask me, do I have a hopeful view for the next billion years? I would say yes. Hopeful view for the next 5 years, maybe not quite as much though, unfortunately.
Do you think, because it's written in a book, so that implies that you're a religious person, a believer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so am I. But I think that with the repentance and a change in the heart, things can change also. And I don't think God put anything completely in stone if people change and repent. I think the world could change too. Do you think so?
Yeah, no, I think so. So, I mean, if I didn't think that things could change for the better, then what's the point of anything that we're doing?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what's the point of talking about any of this? So I think things can change for the better, but you know, I think that ultimate cultural changes will take. It's a long-term game. It takes generations. It took us generations to get to the point we're at right now.
Yeah, it did.
So I think we have to be realistic and say that to get out of it, to get to a place where we live in a culture that is at least like basically sane, will probably kind, sane, empathetic, recognizing the dignity and humanity of all humans,
of
that
one
sort of
to
thing.
another.
Right. I think that'll take generations to achieve, but
not if the light goes on real fast. Like it's like if you're in total darkness and somebody just comes in and flips on the light switch, you could change in the blink of an eye.
Absolutely. But on a collective level, that could happen.
Yeah.
But there have been moments that we've experienced over the last couple of years, even in the last couple of months, that you would hope would be one of those light switch moments for the collectively, and it hasn't quite worked out that way.
Well, do you see your film as having any part in being hopefully a light switch going on for people? Your new film?
Yeah. Am I racist? I certainly hope so. I think it's, it's a movie that's coming out in theaters, and one of the reasons we're putting it out in theaters is because we want to be able to access like a wide cross section of the country, not just people who are already bought into the conservative message.
You know what I say? Let's not use the word conservative anymore. Let's say we are radical constitutionalists.
I think constitutionalist works. I often just say these days sane.
Yeah, common sense and sanity
sane
kind of
works for what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about things like defending the notion that, for example, men can't have babies. I don't even consider that conservative. That's just basically sane. You don't have to be a political conservative to understand that reality, biological reality.
But
So-
it's such a war, isn't it? I've always wanted to talk to you about this. You always win every argument, and that's commendable. You've got a large library of references that you, though looking adorable, you pull out a lot of references that really are great.
I would like to think I win every. I don't know if my wife would agree, but I try anyway. Try to win them. But also it's kind of.
How hard is it though? Maybe
Well-
it's not that hard.
Well, it depends on what you're arguing about, and that's one of the advantages that we have if we're arguing about something. For example, as I just said about the biological nature of. If you're arguing about basic biology and you're arguing against someone who denies it, well, then you've already kind of won the argument before it starts, right?
You would think so.
Yeah.
Well, American Financing, it's my favorite ad. Mortgage lending, Blad, Jew and mortgage. You always tease me, but I love this shit. And if you have high interest debt, which a lot of Americans, I'm not used to being this close to you. This is
I
interesting.
know.
Is my breath bad? I had a lot of coffee. I'm sorry.
Well, no, but you're fidgety. I never realized how fidgety you are. You keep putting your arm on my
Well, it's because you're
chair.
in the screen. I'm supposed to be half in the screen. You've barreled halfway in, so I'm
Should I
fidgeting.
go over this way more?
Yeah, it's fine. It doesn't matter.
You're touching my chair, and then that makes me jump, and then I'm away
All right,
from
then
the
I'll leave
mic.
my arm here. American Financing is a great company. They can help you get out of debt. They use the equity from your home. I talk about them all the time. If you're a homeowner, this is the place to call. American Financing. They've been in business for 25 plus years. They're family owned and operated. They're a lovely, lovely company, and they save people an average of $800 a month. That's like getting a $10,000 raise. And if you act now, you might be able to delay a couple mortgage payments. You can tell them more. I love them. The most important thing is that their mortgage consultants are salary based. They do not get.
They're not going to yank you for their commission.
No, they're going to give you the right loan for you. So tell them more.
That's sad you said you haven't been this close to me.
Well, I mean physically close.
No, I know, because, I don't like to get close to people. But you're my son, and I love you, so I'm going to give you a little kiss. Let me kiss your little cheek. And I love you so much.
Well, we sat this close on the airplane. I meant recording.
Yeah, but I wanted to give you a little kiss
that's
because
really
you're such a
sweet.
good son.
Thank
Now, if you start today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. So here's what you do. You call 866-890-8585. That's 866-890-8585. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net/Roseanne. So much reminds me of the Inquisition times, when it was a very political time, but they didn't want any dissenters, and they only wanted one kind of thinking. And so you had to be, I'm a Jew, and so they would put women or whoever they, whatever, for whatever reason. And then you had to go through a gauntlet of questions, and it reminds me of that, because all of those people who are basically science deniers. I mean, they are science deniers, because if you deny biology, you're denying science.
Sure. Yeah.
So they're up there to be inquisitors and to try to find out where they can get you. And, you can't go off the, it's Marxism 101. All of this stuff was done by the KGB. This is how they overthrow governments. It's how they culturally, get in and infiltrate.
China too.
And China too. Well.
Yeah, and part of that.
Arguing nonsense that they will never accept fact. So
Yeah.
they just love the argument, just like lefties love blood and war and, no end to it. They just love agitation, hate, conflict, and punishment of people who aren't like them, which was so much like the Inquisition of the self-righteous that would say, well, what do you mean when you say you believe in God? Which God is that? This just to beat people down.
Yeah, I think that the goal, so on the left with a lot of these topics, in particular gender, but really all of them, their tactic is to obfuscate. It's not really, they're not really actually trying to win the argument. They're not trying to present a point of view and get you to accept it.
Right.
They're not interested in that. It's more just try to make the subject seem a lot more complicated than it is, so that you give up and become confused. And that's always that. So you say if you see a video of me winning an argument, it's really just insisting on like, this is what we're talking about. No, I'm not going to let you. I know you want to bring us off into the weeds. We're going to stay here on the path. This is the discussion. I'm not going to follow you on some, journey into nonsense. But that's what they try to do. They just try to make everything seem a lot more complicated than it is. They do the same thing on race. There's a version of this movie we just made. It's called Am I Racist? But there's a version of it where we could have called it What is Racism? Because the kind of race hustlers, part of their game is that they make, they accuse everyone, at least every white person, of being racist. But then if you ask them, well, what does it mean to be racist? What do you mean I'm racist? I don't hate people of other races. And they don't want to answer that question. They won't give you an actual definition of what they even mean by the word.
Well,
racist.
they usually say they use the word systematic.
Systemic.
Right, systemic.
Systemic, I'm sorry.
And they'll say
They
things.
use both.
They used to say systematic, but now they say systemic.
Yeah. And they'll say, what is the formula they'll use? Power plus prejudice equals racism or something like that. Which is just a way to absolve, every other race of racism while laying it all at the feet of white people, which is absurd because anyone's capable of being racist, obviously. And also, by the way, white people aren't the only one who have power anymore in this society. It's been that way for a long time now. But that's what they really think. They really think that racism is something
they think some hate is justified.
Right.
It's all about hate. They accept hate. They are hateful. And they just have different words for it. But they are separating people by hate.
Yeah. And
it always works. It just pisses me off so bad. Power always uses the same device to divide and conquer. And it always works.
Yeah. And I think that, there's a Morgan Freeman, the video of Morgan Freeman on a 60 Minutes interview from like 25 years ago. And he's asked about Black History Month, and he says he doesn't like it because Black history is American history. And then he said, well, what do we do about racism? And he said, stop talking about it. And I don't know if he would give the same answer today if he was asked. I hope that he would. But I actually think that it is kind of the answer. Like, there's no final answer to racism. There will always be racist people or tribalistic species.
I think the hope of America in electing Obama, most white people voted for him. I think the hope of America was that would be the end to racism in this country. And instead it had the opposite effect. It was like, oh, good, now we can really, we really have a fulcrum to stand on. And it's all a heist, isn't it? Yep. It's all a grift and a heist. And what makes me so mad is that they always use the term race when they really mean class. They are, the people who are at the top of this lefty grift are all very wealthy and raking in the dough from all the misery of the people they're raising money to, in the name of, that don't get a dime. They just keep squashing them down.
Yeah. And
it's the most racist thing I've ever seen, which is why I left the left. I ran for president in 2012 as a socialist, as the representative of the Black Caucus of the Green Party. And
the Peace and Freedom Party. And when I saw the racism of the left, I had to leave because it's a grift. Yeah. It's all a grift, and it never, ever gets to the people on the ground.
Yeah, I think, and that's the difference. You have the people that are pushing this stuff, and I don't know how much of it they really believe, but a lot of the people on the ground that are buying into it, they really do believe it. That's something even in the film, you see some of these, we go to the Race to Dinner, for example, or we go to a support group for white people sitting around like it's an AA meeting talking about their white grief or whatever. The people leading those groups are the grifters. And I think that they know what they're doing, and they're doing it very intentionally and very deliberately because it's money, it's power, it's influence for them.
Yeah.
But the people that are sitting around in the group, there's a little bit of virtue signaling going on, I think. But at their core, I think they really believe this stuff, and they carry a lot of guilt and shame, and they're looking for a way to atone for it, and they're turning to these grifters as their way of dealing with it. It's like this misplaced guilt that a lot of these people have.
Well, and there is no organization in the whole United States that would actually funnel money to help anybody that's in need of help. I mean, there's just nothing. That's all been, dismantled. And 2008 was the biggest transfer of wealth in human history.
Well, until COVID, and then COVID was.
Yeah.
But, it's
But
the
I mean,
same
when
thing.
Obama got in,
Yeah.
all the money from the bottom went to the top for the first time in a revolution, because it usually goes the other way, or they want it to.
Mm-hmm.
But, we're all under some heavy-duty mind control from KGB and MK Ultra. And it's all through the media. So I saw your movie, and I thought, well, he is doing this because he wants to smash mind control. You are putting out a prayer that you can do something for people to step out of the tiny box they've been farmed in and do some thinking, aren't you?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And I think that most of what I do, because I have a podcast every day that I do, and I'm just like looking directly at the camera and giving my opinions about things in a really direct way. I think that there's some value in that. I certainly hope there is. It's what I do every day. But there are a lot of people you just can't reach that way, because they're not going to watch somebody like me lecturing for an hour. If you're just like saying, "Well, here are my opinions. Here's why I'm right." I think there's a large portion of the audience that just isn't going to listen. You have no chance of reaching them because they're not going to listen.
Well, that's why you are doing the right thing by making a funny movie.
Right, exactly. So I think
because that's really the way to reach people, is doing something funny that just happens to be exposing a grift.
And that's something that the left has typically been very good at.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in recent years, they haven't been so good at it, because they put it's interesting in the entertainment world anyway. The left is now making kind of the mistake that Christian films have made for a long time, where they're putting the message before the story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing but one long homily, and people just aren't that interested.
Excellent point.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But I think it creates an opportunity for someone to come in and make entertainment that's actually entertaining, but also has the message. And that's one thing that, our director on this film, Man, What Is a Woman, Justin Folk, is a great director. And I'm lucky that I have someone like him, because he's always, for both of the films, he's the one who's always reminding me that this is a movie. It's not a podcast. I know I always want to turn to the camera and start giving my opinion, but that's not what this is about. We actually are telling a story, and the story really matters. We have to put that first.
Were these people real that are in this movie?
They're all real. Yeah. Everyone's real. No actors.
Are
except
you
for me,
kidding?
but I'm not even an actor. So yeah.
Those are real?
Yeah, they're 100% real. And these are all real things. I mean, you can look these people up, and if you want to go to your own white grief support group, you can go. And or if you want to go to a race to dinner, I think they're still doing those.
All right, America, listen up. It's no coincidence. Did you know that there's a 1.2 million person surge of COVID-19?
In America?
Yeah, it's coming up. I'm reading this now. And then
my God, no.
there's also monkeypox was just deemed a global health emergency. And then there's that bird flu summit we talked about, because we sell the TWC stuff, the wellness kits. So it's clear something's coming.
People need to stop having sex with monkeys and birds.
I mean, that's a really good point.
Right?
You think, how do you have sex with a bird anyway?
I don't know. And then the COVID's because they're having sex with each other.
That's true.
Dang, it's a simple solution.
Or just stop going outside in general.
Listen, it's time for you to wake up and take control of your life and your kids. Start taking care of your kids. Get the Contagion Emergency Kit from the Wellness Company right now, okay? Because it's packed with ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, Z-Pak, Tamiflu, budesonide, and a nebulizer, the treatments they don't want you to have. Forget waiting in line or struggling to find a doctor willing to prescribe these life-saving medications. Remember, they wouldn't even give you the stuff to save your life.
Yeah.
You've got to have them on hand. Protect your family from the next pandemic.
Order your contagion emergency kit today. Have it right there so you don't have to freak out and go into PTSD trauma. Visit twc.help/RB to get your contagion emergency kit today and use the promo code RB at checkout to save $30. Don't say I didn't do nothing for you. Once again, that's twc.help/RB and use the code RB to claim your discount. And remember, these kits are limited and only available in the USA. Everybody at that race to dinner was white. There was all white women except
That's
one
the only
woman.
people allowed.
Right. Well,
Did they have a quota there for their race consciousness raising race?
Yeah, well,
parties?
it's for white women. It's led by Syra Rao and Regina Jackson, who are the two, the Indian woman and the black woman leading it.
Okay.
But only white women are allowed to attend.
I get it, because they're the ones that has to learn something.
Right.
I get it.
And they have to be women. That's one of the reasons why I ended up having to show up as a server, because actually I wanted to attend the dinner and sit at the table and be one of the
They wouldn't
people.
let you.
And they wouldn't. We called them up and they said that
No white men.
Yeah, well, they said you have to be a woman, which is interesting because it's like, well,
what is a woman?
Right. And
You should just wear a dress.
I think we even asked, or our producers did, well, what about trans woman? You know, because we thought maybe that was one way around this.
Yeah.
And they said that the way of saying, they didn't want to say, no, it has to be a real woman, even though that's what they meant. They couldn't say it. So I think they said the way of putting it was, if I remember correctly, it was like,
no beards.
yeah. Basically, they said, well, someone who's been socialized as a woman.
Oh, that's a good way of putting it.
Right.
Wow.
So
let's unpack that. That's amazing.
So that's every drag queen.
Well, have they been socialized? It doesn't mean
No,
anything.
I don't
but
know.
You could have said you were socialized as a woman.
Yeah,
Still, I suppose.
we thought about it. It would
Yeah.
be funny because the thing is, if I'd come in and say, "Well, I'm a trans woman," I would not have dressed in drag. I would have just walked in exactly like this.
Yeah.
And sat down and say, "I'm a
That
woman."
would've been
And I
amazing.
say, you could have said, I'm a trans woman lesbian. And then they go, oh,
Right.
okay, that makes sense. I want to dress up like a man and put a beard on in drag and then go read the Bible to kids at school.
That's technically drag, I guess. So,
They
What do you
won't let-
think of that idea?
They probably won't let you do it.
well, I think read the Bible without the who needs the beard. The other
Well,
thing
they
too
wouldn't
is
let me unless I was dressed like a man.
yeah, that's true.
See what I'm saying? Trying to be subversive all the time.
Yeah, but that's part of their thing is that they say that being a man or woman, there's no requirement. You don't have to look a certain way. So I should be able to identify as a woman and not change a single thing
Right.
about myself and be accepted as such. But of course, I wouldn't be.
Isn't it ironic that the same time that they passed all those laws about what is a woman, and of course it's, what is it? Somebody with a bonus hole is what it says on the insurance policies. That's what a woman is, a birthing person with a bonus hole.
Chest
bonus
feeder.
hole.
That's what they say.
I think that's a new one. I don't. Think
No,
I've
I
heard
know
that.
everything about it because
Okay.
I have.
The bonus hole is the vagina.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
figured that.
Yeah, okay. I just wasn't
Yeah,
sure.
I figured
I'm
that-
here to help.
Yeah,
I figured that's
see
gotta be
that's self-descriptive. That tells you everything you need to know there.
But but that's like
But at the same time, they passed all those laws pro-trans.
Mhm.
Women lost protection under the law.
Yeah.
As a protected class. So
yeah. Well, that's what Title IX was supposed to be all about: protecting women, protecting women's sports, and so on. And now it's being used. The Biden administration is trying to use it to do exactly the opposite of what it was intended to do.
but the Supreme Court froze him on that. Did
Yeah.
you know that?
Yeah. It's
They
been,
are crazy. They're just trying to burn everything down, I think. Do you?
When you say they, you mean like the left?
The Democrats. Well, the left is the Democrats now.
Yeah, I think,
They are one and the same.
yeah, I totally agree, and I think that you're right that dismantle. They use the word dismantle. They use it as a positive. They talk about it all the time. Dismantle the patriarchy, dismantle whiteness, dismantle whatever. And that is very much what they want to do. And the thing is, we often on the right will say things like, well, the left, they want to redefine woman. They want to redefine all these terms. They want to redefine marriage. But really, they're not looking to redefine anything. What they want to do is remove the definition of these words, but replace it with nothing. So there is no new definition of woman. Woman just doesn't mean anything anymore. It's nothing. So they want to reduce everything into nothingness. So I guess the idea is
woman soon, they take incremental steps, and soon woman will be persona non grata, second-class citizen. And they've wanted that. I think all of this is a return to feudalism. And, that's what they want.
Yeah, I think you're right.
and they planned it for a really long time. But I'm excited for you because I used to be a friend with Michael Moore for a long time. I was in a couple of his movies, and I did introduce him to my mother at a Hollywood Oscars party. And she told me the two people she was most impressed with meeting, Paris Hilton and Michael Moore.
That's a interesting array of people.
That's what she really thought.
Yeah.
But I think you're on the Michael Moore track, and I was happy to see it. And you're kind of on a Sacha Baron Cohen thing too. There's a little of that going on.
Yeah, well, both of those guys are obviously far left, but I take that. I appreciate that. I take it as an enormous compliment. I mean, Michael Moore is interesting because he was a great filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I didn't agree with the point in his documentaries, he hasn't made a film in a while. I don't know why, but he went on a tear of 3-4 documentaries in a row that just artistically are some of the greatest documentaries ever made.
It's funny because his first one, Roger and Me, was so right now what we would call conservative, where he was going after a corporation for sending all our jobs away. He would be a Trumper now with that film, but then he got all pro-corporate.
Yeah.
And they all did. They just got all pro-corporate, and the corporate message uber alles. They don't like anybody who isn't corporate, and they don't like any firm or idea or film that isn't corporate. You've got to have a corporation, and ironically, corporations are the least democratic thing in the whole damn world.
Yeah.
You get fired for no reason.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Right. You're right. Because the left used to be, you can think back to Occupy Wall Street. They were even that recently. And that was when I don't know, can't remember.
That was in the 19s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, I went.
Wasn't that like 2004
Obama? Yeah, I was around the crash, so it would have been like 06, 08, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so it wasn't all that long ago, but that was still, it was the left was considered the anti-corporate
side you were there, Ma.
I was there.
Yeah.
But now all the corporations are far left. They own all the corporations. And this is one of the problems. This is like the identity crisis they're having on the left right now is that they were the rebels for a long time, but then what happens when the rebel takes over? Now you're not the rebel anymore. Now you're in charge. Right. Now you are the establishment, and I think that they're having a lot of trouble with that.
Yeah.
And what do we do now that we own everything?
We don't want to give up power. We fuck the people. Mm-hmm. We don't care what they want. It's going to go our way.
Well, they also don't really know what to do with the power. It's like. It's like in The Dark Knight when Joker says, I'm like a dog chasing a car. I wouldn't know what to do if I caught it. And
they're just making more corporate deals. That's all they do. They're not watching the border or schools or anything like that, but they're over there making deals.
Yeah.
Well, isn't DEI a corporate maneuver? I mean, when you think about it, for some reason they were involved in this whole thing, which your film touches on. That is corporations that are behind that. BlackRock's big behind that. It's not a punk movement, DEI.
Yeah, well, right, exactly. And
which is weird.
When you're
where did that come from? Beside, I know Jesse Jackson used to go around and force companies to kowtow in their employee records, which I thought, well, you got to get some people hired, especially in Hollywood. So I was glad he did it. But then he took nobody got any money but him.
Yeah, funny how that works. This is like the far left racial ideology that's just been repackaged as this DEI thing. But the moment that you find yourself saying the same things that an HR representative at some major pharmaceutical company would say, that's it means that you're on the winning side culturally, but it also means that it's not cool, it's not rebellious anymore.
It's not even hip.
Right. It's not. It's
bootlick and ass kissing bullshit.
Yeah, you're a shill.
And that should give us on the right. That gives you an opportunity. And I think we haven't been very good at this point at seizing the opportunity. But we really are we're the counterinsurgency.
Mm-hmm. We're punk rock.
Right. True.
We're total punk rock, and it's so great because I like to see your creativity and other people, younger people than I, of course, as is everyone on Earth almost. But, the creativity coming out of, being squashed down is what makes art. Mm-hmm. And it's great to see it come from a center place rather than, the marginalized, because it's going to be a better, more cohesive art and film and stuff, and I'm seeing it. Even fashion. It's really wonderful. It's like a return to Main Street and common values, and everybody of every race and creed and culture going, you know what? We have 99% of stuff in common that we agree on. Duh.
Yeah.
Let's find a big tent.
Yeah, that's one in the film. We there's a portion where we go. Well, I go to a biker bar down in the South. It's there's Confederate flags hanging on the wall and all that, and then right from there we go to the Black community, the poor, very impoverished part of New Orleans, and because we didn't know how these conversations were going to go, but we kind of suspected that we would hear really similar things from both of these groups, even though we're told by the media that these groups would hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
But what we found is that we heard exactly the same thing, and they were all, almost the exact same words. Hey, we all bleed the same.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're white or black. It doesn't really matter to me. We heard that from both groups. And I think
because you was talking to the working class. You weren't talking to the operatives
right.
Mm-hmm.
that graduated brainwashed from colleges, the privileged.
And we're talking to people who are most of them don't have corporate jobs, so they don't have the DEI brainwashing. They're not in public school right now, obviously. They're not paying attention to Hollywood. They're not watching a lot of media. So they really are outside of that whole world, to the extent that anybody can be anyway. And so they're not.
And they're not filled with hate.
Right.
Notice that?
Exactly. And so they kind of go to their default position, which is, especially in modern America, most of us, we're all living around people of other races. It's normal.
Right.
And the default position is like, it's not a big deal. I mean, I notice, it's not that race doesn't exist. I notice if someone's of a different race, but it doesn't matter.
It matters to me because I'm like, I bet they cook such and such good. I like going to different people, races' house because, they all have such delicious food. That's why I don't figure why the world can't get that through its big head.
That is
There's
true.
great food in every culture. Well, why aren't we just enjoying our food and our music?
Yeah, that is one of the times when I really do notice race is when I'm going to an ethnic restaurant and I want to make sure that it's like the people working there, and especially in the kitchen, should be of that ethnicity. I do feel that way.
I agree.
All right, Mom, do you remember the old Zippix company we used to do with the toothpicks that have?
Yeah, and they helped me quit smoking last time. Then I ran out of the Zippix, and I started smoking. So now I'm gonna use them to stop doing it again.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Zippix.
It's all their fault.
They stopped sending us stuff because they stopped buying ads. We ran out, and now she's smoking again. So
it's all your fault, y'all.
We're still going to do the ad for you, but we're pissed. Zippix. They're awesome. For those of you who don't know, they're toothpicks that are basically like marinated. I don't know the scientific term, but they have some that are nicotine infused. They have other ones for energy like B12 and caffeine.
Those are good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like you pick your teeth after you eat, but you get a little energy boost. And that last one I did was better than a cup of coffee. That's no joke. But the nicotine ones are great because you can have them in your mouth.
That's right. You suck on 20 or 30 of them at a time. You feel great.
Don't do that because these are high in nicotine.
No, they probably kill you if you do that.
No, they're infused in nicotine. They'll tell you the milligram on it, but some of them you'll get a little bit of a buzz. But what's really cool about these is, yes, it did help my mother quit smoking. They're great for that. But even if you don't want to quit smoking, let's say you're on a long flight or you're in a movie theater or something and you want that rush and you don't want to hit the vape pen because people who vape are D-bags. We all know it. Pick the toothpick out, chew on it, suck on it. You'll get your nicotine. They're amazing. We love them.
They really do help and work.
And if it gets you to quit smoking again, then...
Yeah. But then Dr. Fauci or one of them guys, circus clowns, they says if you're smoking that nicotine kills the spike protein. So I'm afraid to quit. But anyways, I'm going to give it a try.
Well, or just use these for we're here in Florida now. That's why the set's different. We're in Mel K's studio. It was a long flight. I know you were fiending for a cigarette. It was nice.
No, I just drank 3 wines and went to sleep.
Yeah, they need to do a wine-infused Zippix. But anyway,
they should.
Not a bad idea. All right, tell the people a little bit more because there's a discount code if you act now.
Go to zippixtoothpicks.com. That's zippixtoothpicks.com and get 10% off your first order by using the code Roseanne at checkout. Your lungs are going to thank you.
You must be 21 or older to order. Warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical.
I've never been to an Indian restaurant that didn't have Indians working that was good. Like it has to be
Chinese too. I gotta be honest.
I have to say, in the Indian restaurant, it was a mom and dad kind of place than it was Indian people working in there. I think, but you never know who's who anymore.
Yeah, I guess
everyone's all intermarried and everybody's all everything now.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's not like I'm conducting a poll when I go in there, and I'm not walking into the kitchen. And
What's your favorite food?
Favorite food? Well, I love Indian. Like for takeout, I'm going to do the Indian food.
I love Indian food too.
But at my house, I actually do. Not all the cooking, but I do a fair amount of the cooking in my house. Because I do enjoy cooking, and chili is sort of my.
I love chili.
Yeah.
Do you make it with beef chunks?
Yeah. Well, no. You'll probably tell me that my chili isn't real chili. Are you a chili purist?
No, I like any
you have
kind of
beans
chili.
in it? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I do have beans in it.
It's not chili.
Well,
no, it is too chili. I like beans and chili.
Why can't chili have beans in it?
It's just not chili.
Oh, he's just stuck up.
Says what?
He's stuck up. He's all stuck up. That ain't right.
Yeah.
I do white bean chili. Do you ever made that?
Sure, yeah.
That's good.
I do all different kinds of beans. You could throw some black beans in there, pinto, you could do kidney. I mean, you could do all kinds of different things. So,
you don't put meat in your chili?
Oh, no, it's definitely meat.
Okay.
But I don't do just one. So what I like to do is different because I'll put some beef in there. I'll usually put some bison. And I like to throw a little bit of pork in there.
I love bison.
And I might even throw in some ground turkey. Not much, but it lightens up. Yeah, and I'm not a big ground turkey guy.
But anyway, let's go back to the subject.
Okay.
We
can talk about chili for an hour if you want.
No, but I'm so excited because your movie that's being released, when is it, Jake? The 9th?
Well, he'll tell you. The 9th is the premiere, but the 16th, I think, is the theatrical release.
Yeah, it premieres in Nashville on the 9th. It comes out on the 13th.
It's a big deal. It's got a huge theatrical release, which is a very big deal for,
culture war.
In the culture war.
Yeah. We are blessed that it's doing really well in pre-sales. So we've expanded. I don't know how many theaters we're in right now, but it's double what it was when we started.
Dang, that's good.
And of course, we were, when we decided to release this theatrically, the question was how would the theaters respond to it? Will they even take it? Because of we thought the subject matter would be the challenge, and it turns out that the theaters took it. The challenge was more just that it's a documentary, and what we heard from the theaters is like, we'll take it, but documentaries don't attract big audiences, so we're only going to give you a few theaters. We'll see how it does in pre-sales, kind of like a prove it deal.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's proven itself so far in pre-sales, so it's expanded. And
we've doubled the theaters.
Double the theaters.
Well, that's because it's funny, I think, because you get a lot of good laughs in it, so it's a good date night thing, or a guy's night out, or a girl's night out.
I think so. It's kind of a weird. Genre-wise, we actually debated this quite a bit before we sent it out. It's like what genre is it even in? Because it is a documentary. It's all real, but it's not what you think of when you think of documentary.
Right. I don't want to give too much away, but there's like a scene at the end that's obviously scripted.
Well, don't give away the end.
I'm not. I'm just saying.
I love that you did you actually go to DEI training?
Yeah. Do you have your certification?
I don't have it on me. I should carry it around with me, but I did get the certificate.
So you did go to the training?
Yeah, well, go to it. I mean, I went online and I spent 30 minutes taking a course.
And what does it tell you? Like, let's break it down. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
But it's really segregation,
exclusion,
and what's the I? Yeah, it's all double talk. Yeah. It's like we don't want to hire. We hate white men.
Yeah.
But above it all, I know this, above all, they hate Jews. They hate Jews. And the whole reason they invented that bullshit was so they could say Jews are white. And, that's all they care about. Jews are white. We're going to march in a white neighborhood, Beverly Hills. That's what they did last time. And a lot of us marshaled forces because we knew what they were doing. Yeah. It's pure Nazi fucking / Marxist propaganda. They believe that everything the Jews or the whites got was from stealing from them, and that it's their rightful stuff.
Yeah, well, of course, and that's of course Jews are white. Even like Asians can be white in their in this way of thinking.
Blacks are the black face of white supremacy.
Right, white Hispanic is now a thing. Because what they've done is taken this. They've take white and they've expanded to the concept of whiteness, and whiteness is just anything they being the race hustlers, anything they associate with being white is now part of whiteness. And so you could,
but they're so wrong, because a lot of white people have a lot of freckles, so that means they're melanated. So they're totally racist with their definition of whiteness.
Right. Well, and also, by the way, they say white and then people of color as if these two different groups. White, we have color too as white people. I mean, like, what would it mean to not have color? I guess to be translucent or something, like some sort of deep sea species. So it does. The words don't make any sense, but really, it's
they
just a
do
matter
when you look at it like this. Because I've given this a lot of thought, being a refugee from the left. Race is racism. It really is. The only people that race matter to is slave traders. It don't matter. It's class that matters. And when you use race as the cudgel to keep a certain amount of people on a certain continent poor because you're robbing them, I mean, that's class. That's not specifically race. Race is a symptom of a worldwide class war of the people who own everything wanting the rest of us not only to have nothing, but to be prey for their Nazi experiments and to disappear. Yeah. Or be killed in their wars for more money. Yeah. It's a devil world.
I think class is a big part of this, that they kind of they don't talk about as much because they fold it all into the racial thing. And so in their
because they're all privileged.
Right. But in their world, if you're white, you're automatically part of the upper class in this really weird, convoluted way, which of course is absurd.
They've never been to Appalachia and seen the people there.
Exactly. Or even the biker bar we went to in the film. I mean, these
Walmart.
are not...
You ever been to Walmart?
Yeah, Walmart. Yeah.
The Midwest,
anyway,
California.
Right.
It's really disgusting. And it is, what power does when they just want to steal everybody's money.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the things we wanted to do in the film that we never got a chance to do. But I wanted to go to Appalachia, to go to like the poorest area of Appalachia to explore this idea of white privilege. And talk to someone who lives in like a trailer in Appalachia about their privilege, to find out how privileged they really are. And we weren't able to do it. We just ran out of time. But I mean, it's absurd, and it's like insulting to.
It is insulting.
Tell someone who's obviously suffered greatly and is living a hard life that.
Or the homeless are primarily white. The homeless.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no.
And veterans.
Yeah.
Everything's upside down and backwards. I sometimes think, being a comic, that if we all had a big enough laugh, we could shake it all loose and start over again, because it's got to be rebuilt on some common sense and some, not for the benefit of a few at the expense of the many. That just ain't right in any way. And it's funny that it's the Republican Party that holds that value. And I was reading about Frederick Douglass, and one of the founders of, all this upside down history that we get in BS media here, but that they would think that they are progressive, that they are the forward thinkers, when they basically back feudalism, debt slavery, and the worst stuff that we've already thought we conquered. Tribalism and division and war and hate.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned being a comic. I mean, well, you know this as a comedy legend, but comedy is one of the ways to break through a lot of this. And there hasn't been, it's like we've been in this drought period with comedy, at least in the mainstream, but there's hardly been any for the last 10, 15 years, it feels like. Because
in the movies, for sure.
Right, in the movies, yeah. Maybe less so on TV, but certainly in the movies, which is interesting. It's almost like, there was a run of, if you go back to the 90s, there was different runs of different people that were very prolific in comedy, and then it kind of stopped sometime around 2012 or 2013.
Yeah, it did.
That's a good
When
point.
Obama signed the NDAA, I said, he's just killed comedy. You won't be able to say nothing and without like having in the back of your mind, you could be arrested for it. And hence today, the
Cancel
left
culture.
in the UK is trying to come over here and arrest people for stuff that's on X in the UK.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just trying to shut all dissent and everything but their Communist Party line down. They're trying to take it all away. And so long may it wave. And I'm glad you get it. And I'm glad you made the movie. And I'm glad you kind of made a fool of yourself in there. You were brave and you were game to get a laugh. It was funny.
Yeah. I mean, I think I made myself the butt of the joke in many of those scenes, kind of intentionally, but also hopefully exposing, what we're trying to expose.
I think those people should be ashamed that they are milking people who, probably have bipolar disorder and 100 other things, feeling guilty for, slavery when they never had no slaves. I mean, and they were never slaves neither. I mean, that's just bilking people. That's like selling insurance.
Yeah, and the slavery thing, that always, this guilt trip they try to do over slavery, I find really ridiculous for a lot of reasons. I mean, the obvious reason is that no one owns slaves. Like, none of us have ever owned slaves. We never knew anyone who owned slaves. But also because slavery is a sin, is a worldwide global sin that for thousands of years, everybody across the entire globe in every culture of every race owned slaves. Mm-hmm. And if they didn't own slaves, they were okay with the fact that slavery existed as an institution. I mean, it was a global institution.
Well, the same people that keep on talking about slavery 100 years ago in America are also part of the party which now enables more slaves than have ever existed in the world. Mm-hmm. Child slaves, sex slaves, labor slaves, wage slaves. And they use that as a cudgel so we won't look at that other stuff. But America has more child slaves now coming across the border. And, every family's going to get one. And they aren't even tracking them or nothing. They're going to have a little kid in their house who they say, this is our, special cousin or whoever that's going to be doing all the unpaid labor and watching the kids. That's how it works. Mm-hmm. And they're all down for it.
Yeah, I mean,
they're letting it happen.
A lot of people don't realize that slavery was officially actually legal as recently as the 1980s in Africa. Africa was the last place to actually have the institution of slavery legal.
But Libya sells black people as slaves now. Yeah. Libya sells black people for $200. You can buy a black slave. And in Gaza, they do too. Palestinians own black people. And we don't get to hear any of that. But here we sit up to about here with BS from the Democrat Party. And any blow against that empire is a blow for freedom and liberty and for God, I think. So I'm glad you're doing it. I'm glad you're funny. I'm glad God gave you a gift of humor, which takes a real lot of thinking to make something funny, because you got to take two different disparate ideas and bring them together in a big smash. And you did it. So, I think you did good. I think you made a good film. I hope you'll make more. Are you thinking of making more?
Absolutely. That's the one thing I mentioned, doing a podcast, because the podcast I do is, I think what you do is great because it's like you get to have interesting conversations, right? And there's a lot that could come out of a conversation. But the podcast that I do is like political commentary, so it's just me talking to the camera. And
well, you do a lot of thinking to come up with that.
Sure,
content.
Yeah, it's right, exactly, and I think that there's some value in it. But the thing about that is it's very tied to the news cycle, and so I put hours and hours of work into doing this podcast, and I do the show, and then by tomorrow nobody cares anymore because the news cycle's moved on. And then you make a movie, and you see that it's possible to create something that people care about for more than 5 minutes. What Is Woman came out 2 years ago. People still come up to me about it all the time and talk about what the movie meant to them. So just that alone, to see that it's possible to create, to be in the daily content grind, and then to create something that has some staying power is really refreshing. And it's like, I want to hold on. I want to keep doing that.
Yeah.
I couldn't go back to just the daily grind of content that's so temporal and is forgotten so quickly.
I think you say new and different things about just racism itself.
We move the mic a little.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think you're saying new and needed things about racism itself in the culture. I think it'll open up a lot of dialogue with people. But I was going to ask you, what do you think? I mean, you probably don't even want to think about this, but I do, because it always happens to me too. But the naysayers, and the trolls, how they're going to come for you. Have you thought about what they're going to say? Because when I was watching, I was like, oh, they're going to say this and say that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't thought much about it. I'm sure they'll have a lot to say, and that's fine. I know you're used to it. I'm used to it, and I don't worry about it. I think that, in fact, I'd rather have that than the alternative, because I know that, especially with like the left-wing media, they prefer to just ignore this.
Yeah.
And even with What Is a Woman, it was a big success for us, but the corporate media ignored it for a long time because it was on our platform. And so they felt like, well, okay, we can just ignore that, pretend it doesn't exist. I want to put it somewhere and then have the success with it where they can't ignore it, and they have to come up with some naysaying, whatever criticism. And so if that starts, if there's a bunch of, I'm sure we're going to get terrible reviews.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's going to happen. And that's fine, because it means that you can't ignore it. You had to at least acknowledge that it exists.
Do you think, though, consider this, do you think that there has been some sort of a cultural shift, and that it's in the process of shifting even more? Because like I told Greg Gutfeld, his show being the #1 nighttime talk show is evidence of a cultural shift.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of shifts happening. And in the entertainment space in particular, like you mentioned, Gutfeld.
But I mean on media.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is because, like we were talking about, the left has sort of left the playing field on some of these things. They're not making comedy anymore, really. They don't make entertainment the way that they used to. At least they don't make it as effectively as they used to, because they're putting the message before the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of the shift that you're seeing, that it allows these kind of like insurgent characters, I'm one of them,
Yeah, you are.
To come in and say, all right, I'll do it then. And I hope that it continues,
Yeah, I hope you inspire a lot of other people. And I hope that your movie does so well that it inspires theaters to, open their doors to other than a certain narrative. Because I think people are ready to see something.
Yeah, that's also been the case for a long time, that, Hollywood, just for example, I mean, there's so much money that these Hollywood studios could make by making biblical films.
I know.
And every once in a while, a biblical film is made, and it does amazingly well, because there's so much hunger for that. And there's so many great stories in the Bible.
Oh my gosh!
Even aside from the spiritual resonance of them and truth of them, these are also just great stories. And so
I've wanted to do that forever.
Yeah, and you open up the first page of the Bible, you can just go through the whole thing, and there's 1,000 billion-dollar movies in it. But it's amazing that Hollywood hates us so much that they'll even sacrifice the money. They're like, I don't even want $1 billion from you people. I hate you that much.
They did that with her.
That's what they did with me.
Yeah.
I was a #1 show with 28 million viewers, and they canceled it for a tweet they didn't understand, because they don't understand anything about Jewish people, or what the Iran deal meant to the Jewish people. So
what do you make of that? That
they canceled me, their #1 show that they've only had in like 15 years since I went off the air before. They didn't care about the money, and they didn't care about their stockholders. But I'll tell you, I don't know what kind of capitalism that is. It isn't really, can't be capitalism.
Yeah, it's not, because they're willing to sacrifice the money.
Yeah.
But just based on their pure resentment and hatred.
Well, they don't want to lose the culture war, and that's
it's the culture war.
And that's more important to them, because it's an ideology.
They said, one person said, I'm just afraid she's going to humanize Trump voters.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't want that.
No,
You know,
you definitely don't want that. Or Trump. You don't want to humanize him. Then you can't keep trying to lock him up and take shots at him and,
Fundraise off him.
off him.
And you had achieved something that you almost never see, which is to take a property that existed, years ago and kind of do whatever you call reboot that actually captures the essence of what the old thing was
And updated it for the times,
Right.
which of course no one can do.
And there's been a million attempts at that, and they almost always are terrible.
Well, because as Bob Iger said, it's never a good idea to give an artist too much power over their product. Okay, so you're doing it for God, right? We're like the Blues Brothers. We're on a mission from God, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, ultimately, if you're a religious person and you're truly religious, that drives everything that you do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I even get criticized on occasion, even with the first movie, What Is Woman, that from some my Christian audience, that they said, well, why didn't you say anything about God? Where was why did it? And then What Is Woman, we gave the answer to What Is Woman at the end of the movie. Spoiler alert, adult human female. And there was a certain, it wasn't a loud voice, but there was some voices that said, well, that was your chance to say something about your faith and about God. Oh. And my answer to that was, well, it's there. I mean, we're speaking the truth about this topic. And so if you're speaking the truth, that that's that spiritual truth is there embedded in it.
They also hate the Bible. They really hate Christians. They hate Jews a lot because we're white.
They hate people that believe in God because they're hard to control.
Yeah, they hate the Torah and they hate the New Testament too. They hate the Jews. They hate Muslims that think a little bit different because there's a lot of sects of Muslims, but they hate Christians and they're going for them like crazy. And they think every Christian is like that Baptist bunch that used to stand out there. God hates. Westboro.
Yeah.
They think every Christian is like that, and they also love. They love the idea of forcing Christians to make cakes against their will and their beliefs, and to force Christians who are anti-abortion to pay for abortions. I mean, that's not American. That's fascist.
Yeah, and then they claim that they're in favor of freedom of association, which is really, the infamous cake baking kind of cases. We talk about that like it's a free speech case, which it is, that too. But I think even more, it's just basic freedom of association. If somebody says that they run a business and they say, I don't want to be associated with you, or I don't want to be associated with this event, if it's a gay wedding, that's one of your most basic freedoms. If you don't have the freedom to decide who you associate with, especially professionally, then in what sense are we free at all?
I never understood why the right didn't fight back by going to a gay bakery and saying, we want a cake that says blah, 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 and seeing them refuse. Why doesn't the right ever fight back?
I think they fight back in different ways, but
well, the boycotts of.
Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you one of the reasons why you didn't have conservatives doing that for the most part is that, honestly, conservatives are nice people, and they're not really looking for trouble. They're not looking for conflict. They don't think of a cake as an opportunity to exercise power over another person.
That's true.
And so it takes a certain type of person to even think of that kind of thing.
That's
and you have all these cake baking cases, and none of that was all engineered. It happened for it was not. These were not gay couples that just happened to wander in and then said,
"Yeah, it's all for a political."
They targeted it. They knew that. Okay, well, this guy is a Christian. He runs this.
They
and
were
we're
friends.
Go in there.
That first case, it was their friend, their actual friend that they put out of business. That was a true story. I don't know if you guys know that. I covered it back in the day.
Is that Jack? Not Jack Phillips.
No, it was the one in Oregon, and he wouldn't do. They were friends. It was a lesbian wedding. He didn't want to make a cake, and they basically, instead of just going to the next bakery, they called all the vendors that were supplying to them and said, "We will no longer support you," and did basically a nationwide ban. Put their friends out of business.
They put the Hitler jackboot right on their face to wipe them out.
This was kind of the beginning of that stuff. I talked about this 10, 15 years ago, and It was kind of the beginning of what we're seeing, the beginning of cancel culture, really.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. That
It's a weird hill to die on.
with these like LGBT activist types, they'll do that kind of thing. In my experience, these can be very vicious people and very like scheming and devious. And with conservative types, they just don't. They're trying to live their lives and they want to go get a cake and they're not like, probably if they went in and asked for a cake and they were turned away, they just say, all right, I'll go, I'll go to the bakery across the street. I'm not looking for, I don't want this to be what my life is about. I'll go and I got to go pick up the kids and I got to get back to my life. And so that's one of the reasons why, that's like one of the disadvantages that we have is that we're actually normal people. We have families that we care about. We have jobs, we're not out protesting at 3:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday,
But there is the small matter of defending the Constitution and the people's constitutional rights,
right?
That somebody shouldn't overlook because that was an attack.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, but that's the tension that the instinct among conservatives is to focus on yourself, your family. You're not looking for trouble, and that's a good instinct. That's a way to be a healthy, happy person,
right?
But that's not a recipe for winning a battle. And when you want to fight a war, we're in a culture war, you have to be a little bit vicious. And it takes a certain type of person. Like, frankly, you need some assholes who are willing to do that kind of thing. I think that's kind of the tension.
Or maybe you just need people that are smarter than the idiots. It seems like now we're starting to hear things trickle out about wins in the courts, and things are just starting to trickle out about some corruption being corralled in. I think more is going to come the closer we get to the election. So I just feel a shift. And the fact that they're putting this movie in so many theaters, I think, is evidence of it. People are ready to see, and other people who they must have woke up or something, they go, boy, there's a lot of money to be made amongst normal people instead of just the most marginalized groups.
Yeah, I hope, and I think I can detect, I see a lot of the shift that you're talking about. I think some of it's legislative. There have been some big legislative victories, at least statewide, even on the gender issue. I mean, I don't know how many states there are now that ban child mutilation. Like, we shouldn't need any laws to ban it because it just shouldn't be happening, but we do need laws because it is happening. And there are many states now that have passed laws against it. Tennessee being my home state, being one of them. So there's that. There's legislative, political shifts that are there. But I do think there's a cultural shift. Even just, what is a woman? We filmed that 3 years ago, and part of that was we were talking to the so-called experts who pushed the gender ideology, but we also went and did kind of man on the street interviews with just random people in 6 or 7 cities across the country, and asked about these issues. And we found 3 years ago when we filmed it, we found that most people were too afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
If we asked them what is a woman or should men be allowed in the women's room, most people we talked to either would say, yeah, men should be allowed, or they wouldn't want to talk about it, or because they were too afraid. I think that if I went and did the same exact man on the street interviews in the same cities again today, I think there'd be a lot more people who are willing to say, look, a woman's an adult human female. No, men don't belong in the women's room. That's ridiculous. I think people are it's not even like they've been awakened to the reality, because they knew the reality all along, but they're emboldened to, speak the truth that they've always known. I think that's happening.
And I think that a lot of those, the street gangs that the Democrats unleash and use, they might have got smart too. They might have got a little bit smarter as well. To say, we can't be the shock troops for the Democrat Party when we're, You mean
like an Antifa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because,
we haven't seen Antifa in a little
not
bit.
too much, except for now they're masquerading as the pro-Palestinians.
That's true.
But
and that was the scheduled race riots we were supposed to get right before an election, which is how it usually goes. That all got subsumed by the Palestinian stuff.
It's still coming. It's still
because
coming.
they go and ask
100%.
him on the street, like, where's the river to the sea? And it's the same people you saw that were over and over again, and they are getting paid. But I think I think their donors might have got busted a little bit, and they're not paying up so well.
Yeah.
Well, BLM didn't endorse Kamala, at least as of last week. I mean, I don't know the whole group, but
People
some
are getting
spokesperson.
smart. And
Let's hope. Let's hope.
I think people are seeing the connections between being bamboozled and grifted.
Yeah, some of that's smart, but also just on the left, there's a fracturing that's happening, and the center sort of isn't holding on the left. I think because it's kind of, when you have a movement that is built on really nothing, like there's no core of it, you know. What do they even really believe in? I mean, we talked about earlier, they want to dismantle and destroy, which is what they want, but that's a negative. It's a very negative thing to rally around. And so I think they don't have like a core thing that they believe in. And so now they're just sort of eating each other.
They think America is the worst thing that ever happened. That's why they keep talking about the worst part of our country's history, slavery. But they never talk about when America, what's that ship? The whole Steven Spielberg made that movie about the Amistad. Yeah. That legal case ended slavery worldwide. America is the place that ended slavery when a black man from a slave ship sued in the Supreme Court and won. How come they're not teaching any of that to the kids?
Yeah. Well, right. I mean,
that we as a country defeated our own darkness, and that a slave went to, someone on a slave ship went to the Supreme Court and overturned slavery. That's pretty big that kids would need to know that.
Yeah, white Western colonial powers did not invent slavery because it had been invented thousands of years before that, but did abolish it. Were the first to abolish it. Not just abolish it, but then once the slave trade was abolished, you had European ships that were patrolling the seas to try to seize the slave ships, and you had the Arab powers that were continuing it.
Pirates,
and they would.
America's first war was with the Somali pirates.
And the Arab ship would see a British ship coming, and they knew that they had slaves, so they would kill all their slaves or throw them into the ocean so that they wouldn't be found out. I mean, so it was. That's a part of the history that isn't told, but that's also why we find this hatred for America, because kids are not being taught the aspects of our history that would make you like beam with pride.
Like little black kids, it pisses me off that they don't know about Frederick Douglass and they don't know about Fannie Lou Hamer, who, was a communist, but still she did organize farmers and stuff. And, all of these great black characters in American history that rose from nothing to greatness. And they don't ever teach about that. They don't teach about
MLK. That was one of my favorite lines in your movie. She said, MLK said a lot of things.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He said a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Can they disrespect him more?
Yeah, they have been. They have been for a while.
Oh yeah. MLK is not popular with these new DEI types. He's not. He's not. Well, look, anyone who was born prior to about 30 years ago is automatically not up to date and racist and part of the problem. That's why all the statues, it's like when they started tearing down the Confederate statues and whatever it was, 2017 or, that first kind of rush of tearing down statues. Some of us at the time pointed out and said, well, look, if you're tearing down these statues on the basis that they were white, racist, and slave owners, well, then guess who else was? The founding fathers. And guess who else were slave owners? Like everybody in history before them. So,
and
so they're going to be next, and they were next.
African kings. They had the most slaves. So what are you going to do? Turn the effing page. I look at you and go, I shouldn't swear around him. He's a very...
Oh, no, you're okay. You won't
it's
offend
like, okay, let's just turn the page. Let's get back to sanity. Let's solve some problems. Let's start laughing with each other again.
Yeah.
These people that you have in your show, I have met so many hundreds of times at so many benefit dinners, and I was enjoying seeing them squirm a little. It was fun.
Yeah, and they're these are not good people.
They are not good people.
Some people when we do these, especially on this movie, I get the question a lot of well, how do you keep a straight face? How do you not laugh when you're? And the truth is, not laughing is pretty easy because especially when you're in the room with these people, it's quite unpleasant, and the things that they're saying are really terrible.
I know. It blew my mind when I'd be in those rooms and hear it.
So it's that there really is no. Now we make some comedy of it after the fact, but in the room, it's actually not funny at all. So really the challenge is not like not laughing, but it's not screaming at them,
right?
Which is really what more of my instinct is, what I want to do. But that would be a very different kind of movie.
That was like my writer's room. That dinner. That was like me trying to get some funny out of some people.
Oh man, I can't imagine.
Yeah, you can't.
There's not a lot of comedy to find there, at least not intentional comedy.
No, but yeah. Well, you can find it because if you talk to them long enough, it's hilarious how preposterously, whatever the word is, preposterously pompous they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about releasing, when the movie's done, the raw footage, because one of my things when I'm watching is I actually wanted to see them talk more, like the dinner for races, whatever it was called, those two women. I wanted to see it. Yeah, I would love to see their entire panel, because to me, that's all. You're hilarious in it, by the way. But them talking, I do find hilarious. Please release this down the road.
Yeah, there's plenty.
Just put a black stripe on their face.
Or just release it. They signed a waiver. It's unbelievable comedy.
And that dinner was like 2 hours long.
Yeah.
And obviously we can't put 2 hours in the movie.
Right.
And it just is relentless. Like
you can tell.
You're in the room with them, and these women are just getting broken down. It's like it's the most intense brainwashing session I've ever witnessed. They're just breaking these women down and making them. It's really weird.
And they pay for it. They pay for it.
And
I don't want to give any more away, but there is this. I'll just say this: there is a self-flagellation thing to this that is really troubling. It's not just the people coming here and saying, "Oh, you're racist, white, terrible people." It's the white people are paying them to do it, and that's a really weird psychological thing I don't understand.
Well, then they'll be absolved of their whiteness and their racism.
Well, yeah, but that's the idea. But you can't be absolved of it. That's the game. They bring you in and say, okay, well, you are a sinner because you're white. Here's what you can do to atone, and then you do it. And then the trick is, well, but you're still white, so you're still a sinner. In fact, you're just as racist now as you were when you first came in, and there's no way out of it. It's like a disease that can be managed but not ever cured.
Right,
is the way that they sell it.
I love when you went on the TV show as a DEI spokesperson, and the ladies you were on the shows with, like Hello Canup or whatever it was.
That's another one.
They were buying it.
Speaking of raw footage, those are interviews we did in real life, and I don't know that I can find those videos. Like they're out there somewhere. That one in Utah in particular was very funny because first of all, the other ones we did by Zoom, so you think it's a little bit easier to kind of trick them. The Utah one, we showed up and we came in, we signed in, I waited backstage. But that whole, that was a segment we did, and we could only include a couple minutes of it.
Yeah.
There were some other good moments. Like I had a chance, didn't make it in the movie, but in Utah, it was a white woman and an Asian woman. And at one point, the white woman interrupted the Asian woman. And so I had a chance to correct the white woman. And so,
cool.
You've just interrupted a woman of color. So this is an example of everyday racism.
You did say at one point, this is more for you than for you, which I love. There's great. I highly recommend everybody go see this movie, obviously.
Everyone, though, should work on their own racism.
Yeah.
Everyone really should look within themselves to get rid of vestigial things from their childhood that stand in the way of making friends or being okay with God.
If you are, but I think there are plenty of people who are just not racist. If you don't hate or look down on people of other races because of their race, then you're not racist. You might have many other flaws, but you're not racist.
Well, I'm specifically talking about people who are all the time out there fat-mouthing about white people can't be racist. That's the most racist thing I've ever heard in my life. They should look within their self of why they're saying something that stupid.
Yeah.
You mean black people can't be racist? You said white people, right?
Right. Yeah, they're saying. They're saying
either way.
No,
to
everyone's
speak
racist.
for anything other than yourself is just so lacks any kind of self-awareness at all. And to go, those people are not as smart as me. whoever's saying
And
it.
to think that they can tell you what your own motivations are, this always gets me. That they'll say that, okay, well, this word or this phrase is racist, and then you can say, well, yeah, but I didn't mean it. Like, I'm the one who said it.
That's what happened to me when
Right.
they said, you said black people looks like apes. No, I didn't.
And
Okay?
there's only one, when you say something, there's only one person in the universe.
Yeah.
Well, there's only one human being in the universe who can actually be the authority on what you meant when you said it, and that is you alone. So it never makes, and that's it. So it's like if someone says something, you're offended because you took it a certain way, and they say, well, I didn't mean it that way. That should be the end of the conversation.
It should
Yeah.
be.
They're the only person who can speak to how they meant it.
It's just, to me, that is Nazism when you classify an entire race as beneath you.
Yeah, well, it's quite vicious and it's dehumanizing, and it never leads anywhere good. I mean, we've seen throughout
No.
history, we've seen many examples of certain groups being singled out as the problem or the source of all our ills, or as somehow inherently evil, and it never leads. It always leads to the same place, which is bloodshed, sorrow,
Exactly.
and suffering. And so it's frustrating when you're in the middle of it, and you're telling people like, "Look, guys, this is we know where this is going. Like,
We do.
let's stop."
Yeah.
And yet the train keeps heading in that direction.
Okay, well, I
He's-
just would love to thank you for being here today. It was wonderful to talk to you. Your movie is called Am I Racist, right?
Absolutely.
I'm giving you the last word. Do you want to have anything more to say?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's a thrill, and I really appreciate it. And we talked about pre-sales for the movie, and pre-sale tickets are really important. So if anyone wants to go to miracist.com to get tickets, that'd be amazing.
Support Matt. I love the film. We
Support
saw
Matt.
it. We love it.
He's a soldier on the front lines. He's
Yeah.
very brave. He makes things turn, but he's there to turn them. That takes a lot of.
Even if I am an adorable,
that takes a lot of.
leprechaun,
No, it's a very Irish thing to get there and turn it. You know, the Irish, they're some strong warrior types.
yeah, I think so.
Absolutely. Well,
Well, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Oh, you see,